Welcome back to the show. Barbara Greene joining us again, our certified orofacial myofunctional therapist. She's live on the podcast and the Zoomcast. Excited that she's here to talk more about her work and how she's helping so many people with all her years of experience. And she'll explain exactly what she does. And by the way, I have seen the effects, the benefits, the before and the afters of what she does. So first and foremost, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I am well.
Great. Well, it's excited to have you back here to talk more about, first and foremost, the website, tonguethrust.com. That's TONGUETHRUST.com. You've been in private practice since 1971 doing myofunctional therapy. Could you just share a little bit of, your background? And of course, I know you wanted to share your screen today for us.
Yes. Do you have the share screen on?
Go for it. It's on. Bring it
Okay.
on. Yep. Would love
Uh,
to hear and to see, obviously. She's been on the show quite a few times, and I think seeing is believing. I've seen a lot of before and after pictures of how this type of therapy has helped.
and so I'm not showing that I'm share screening. Do you have it yet?
Nope, I don't have it. We tested it before we started. It worked. So hold
Yes.
on.
But it's not working now.
No, how is that possible? No, you're not blocked at all. Let me just double check. No,
Oh,
you should be able
now
to
I
hear,
see
sweetheart.
you. Now I say share screen, share,
Okay.
and
There you go. I see it now, Barbara. Beautiful. Yep.
very good. All right. So we've got it. Okay. So a little bit about myself. I trained with Daniel Garliner and Richard Barrett and numerous conferences over the years at
Mm-hmm.
meetings. And then I've seen patients for 53 years.
You don't look old enough to be seeing patients for that long, Barbara. Really? Amazing.
Well, thank you very much for that compliment.
You're
I
welcome.
that. And so it is definitely part of my being. And I don't know what I'd do if I weren't seeing patients. So there's no sense in retiring because I have no other greater interest. So this is how to contact me. My phone number, 805-452-4302. And then my email is easy. It's just Barbara@tonguethrust.com and my website. And I'm in Ventura, but I see patients virtually. So many of my patients are virtual. Today, I'd like to discuss the problems that anyone faces who is a mouth breather. And if you walk around, no matter where you go, whether you go shopping, whether you go to the mall, or just taking walks down the street, I will guarantee you will see people who breathe through their mouth. And mouth breathing is actually very, very bad for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different reasons. In this picture, you can see the difference between a normal face and a mouth breather. Now,
Mm-hmm.
all mouth breathers don't look exactly like this person's face, but what you can see is the fact that the chin is
Yeah.
dropped down and back.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the upper lip gets shorter, the lower lip actually gets fuller, and a lot of times they have a lot of mentalis activity, which this should just be calm. It shouldn't activate when you're doing things like swallowing, talking, breathing. It shouldn't be in active motion. It can affect the eyes, and it
Mm-hmm.
affects the shape of the face because the face is flatter when you are a mouth breather. Then inside, it affects where the tongue is. So with a mouth breather here, look at the tongue position. It is low. So this is the tongue, and it sits low in the mouth. And the unfortunate thing is that the front of the tongue becomes the most active part of the tongue
Mm-hmm.
when it should be the back of the tongue.
I
And
see.
instead, the back of the tongue is weak
Yeah.
and it falls back against the throat, especially at night.
Wow.
And because you're on your back or on your sides or your stomach, and it can then fall back against your throat and cut
Ah,
off the airway.
wait, so
And
how should we be sleeping, Barbara?
this is where your tongue should be all the time, that you're not
Okay.
talking or laughing or at the dentist or eating. And so our tongue should be behind our upper front teeth about that far,
Doing that now.
and then all the way across the top of our mouth.
Okay.
Now, here's the importance of that also. When we swallow, our tongue pushes upward and it releases endorphins in our body. And
Wow.
those are our feel good things. The endorphins make us feel better. So a person that has a tongue thrust doesn't have that happening. And
Mm-hmm.
a difference between the top of the mouth here, which is pretty level, and see the nice big airway in the nose. Whereas here, the top of the mouth starts to get more narrow because
Mm-hmm.
it's pushed in from the sides when the tongue is down and the mouth is open.
Wow.
And so they have a higher, more narrow arch in their mouth, which then affects their bite. And they are also affecting the size of their airway. So the
Wow.
airway is actually smaller. So it's even harder for them to breathe,
Mm-hmm.
and they tend to become congested. So then
Wow.
the last thing that's very important for the tongue position is where it goes when you swallow. And we swallow once a minute or twice a minute when we're awake.
Okay.
Swallow once a minute when we're asleep. So how many swallows would that be in a daytime and nighttime? That's
Ooh, I can't do the math. What is it?
anything. And of course, it varies with every person,
Okay.
but our tongue should go across the top of our mouth and back against our throat when we swallow.
Okay.
Whereas a tongue thrust person, the tongue might go up. Sometimes it touches the top of the mouth, sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, but it's too far forward.
Okay.
They swallow a lot of air, and
Mm-hmm.
their tongue can then go either laterally or forward and or laterally, and
Okay.
it affects their bite. And then they also use their facial muscles to help themselves swallow, because they have to get the suction from somewhere to achieve the swallow.
Okay.
And so they're overdeveloping their facial muscles.
Wow.
And people who have a tongue thrust usually develop a lot of lines in their faces, and it ages their face, which is not all that exciting to have something that's aging your face. So a mouth breather, look at the way he holds his head also. So their head posture is usually extended either down and back or up and forward, just trying to get more air. So it affects their head, neck, body posture. So what does that matter? Well, unfortunately, all of us have jaw joints. And so if you've got your head extended and your jaw is dropped open, it's putting a lot of pressure on your jaw joints to function correctly and your facial muscles. So what do they end up with all the time? TMJ problems, or TMD, sometimes it's called. TMD is temporomandibular joint dysfunction, and that's the name of your jaw joint, the temporomandibular joint. So I have patient after patient, even children, who already have jaw joint dysfunction. They'll have clicking or popping, they'll have pain, and they will have difficulty with just normal function. And they often then cannot chew their food correctly. So they tend to take big bites of food, chew it just a little bit, and then swallow it. So a lot of my patients end up having a lot of gastric issues. So they have stomach aches, they have burping, gas, GERD, they have all sorts of gastric type issues just because, oh, and hiccups, did I say that? I can't remember.
No, but
Just because,
interesting.
just because their mouth is open
Wow.
and they are breathing incorrectly. So obviously, we should sit with our mouth closed and breathing through our nose. Okay. Now, so here's a typical mouth breather would just have their mouth open. And some people sit with their mouth open much wider than this. So whether you're a child or an adult, you should not be a mouth breather. And they'll say, well, but my nose is stuffed up all the time. Well, let's talk about the nose. Yes, you should be breathing through your nose. And this is the inside of your nose. So there is the bone called the septum, and then there are three projections called turbinates. And this was a large one, a medium-sized one, and then a smaller one. And these turbinates are very important to your breathing. What they do, they're actually three long tubes. So you have 6 tubes in your face. And the air, when you breathe through your nose, goes through those into those tubes. And I call it, it spins, and it heats the air to your body temperature so that when it goes down to the lungs, it's warm air. And then it moistens the air because your lungs are moist. And then in the lining of the nose, there are enzymes that kill bacteria. And there are also little hairs. If you look up into anybody's nose, you see little hairs. And those hairs filter the air. Now, I have to park my car in my driveway because I don't have a garage. Okay.
Me too.
I love a clean car. Drives me crazy not to have clean windows and a clean car. So I go get my car washed.
Aw.
Literally an hour later, you can go out and there's already dust on the car.
Pollen, dust, leaf, bird poop. I got bird poop on mine this morning. I was not happy about it. I said, I just washed it the other day. It
Exactly.
happens. It happens.
And so that's the air we're breathing.
Yeah.
So if we're not filtering that air, we are actually insulting our lungs.
Yeah,
So
I see what you
any
mean.
mouth breather is insulting their lungs because the air is dry, the air is cold, the air is dirty, and there's nothing killing bacteria.
Yeah.
Okay? And there are many more functions in the nose, but those are the primary functions. So what happens to you? What we find is those are the people that have a lot of allergies. Those are the people who have a lot of asthma.
Mm.
And those are the people that get sick a lot. They get,
Yeah.
I ask my patients, about how many colds do you get a year? The answer should be 0 or maybe 1, but they'll say, oh, 5 or 6, like that's normal. Well, it isn't normal because your nose should be filtering the air and keeping you well. Now, when we get something like COVID, we're all more susceptible because there's this big bug in the air. But there are many people who had no symptoms during COVID. And so their airway helped protect them. So mouth breathing is very, very bad. Now, if we look at, whoops, I missed one. If we look at the nose, sometimes you have a deviated septum. Maybe you were in, what happened to me is my sandbox blew over in a windstorm.
Oh.
And I was rocking on it. And the roof came over and hit my nose.
Oh.
And so I ended up with a deviated septum.
Oh.
So that takes up space in your nose. Then, if you're not using your nose, the turbinates, which normally filter the air, actually get enlarged. They get irritated because of all I call it a boggy swamp in your nose. Your nose continues to produce the mucus. The mucus is there to catch the dirt. Okay, the hairs filter it, but the mucus catches the dirt, and then you need to blow your nose and get the bug out of your nose. Okay, but if your turbinates are not helping to warm the air and moisten the air, and the nose is not being used with the little hairs filtering the air.
Cilia. They're called cilia, right?
Yeah, uh-huh. Thank you,
You're
Jill.
welcome. I remember from biology.
So then what happens is that builds up in your nose and it becomes a boggy swamp.
Hmm.
So then it irritates the turbinates, and see how they've gotten very large now.
Yeah.
And you surgically have to go in. So if somebody comes in and they say to me, I cannot breathe through my nose, and it's just not from being stuffed up. They literally feel like they cannot breathe. And so you have to send them to an ENT specialist.
Hmm.
Then they should take a CBCT scan or x-rays or something to diagnose what's happening in that nose. And when you have a
Wow.
septum and you have enlarged turbinates like this,
Yeah.
you have to have surgery. And so they straighten out the septum until it looks like this, and
Hmm.
back the turbinates to make them smaller so they look like this again.
Yeah, they describe. Look, I did the same thing with the ENT. They said I have really bad allergies. I'm always sick. So they did that scan, just like you said, and I
That's
saw like the cavities. And then they said basically we're going to go in and scrape out like the bone, like the cartilage, to open it up more.
yes.
So I had this. I mean, they didn't say it was deviated septum, but I guess it was because
Right.
that's yeah. Oh my gosh, this is only 2 years ago I did this.
I've had it done.
Oh,
It, it's not the easiest surgery in the world.
painful. Oh yeah, that and hernia surgery. I don't know which one was worse. Childbirth was definitely easier though. But it's
The
worth
good
it in the
news
end.
is the good news is that it heals,
It
and
does.
then you can breathe. But but you have to then stop breathing through your mouth,
Oh yeah.
because if you
Mhm.
don't and you don't use that nose, the exact same thing is going to happen again. Now, not necessarily the deviated septum,
Mhm.
but the turbinates are going to swell up again. I just had a patient who his adenoids were completely blocking his airway.
Yeah.
He had had adenoid surgery just a year before,
Mm.
but because he didn't use his nose at all, afterwards, the adenoids enlarged again. So he
Wow.
just had to have surgery again. I had one
Wow.
patient who had a complete blockage in his nose of bone.
Ooh.
And so we called it the creature. It was
Yeah.
about that big around in the back of the top of his nose. And literally, he could not breathe. And he had seen two ENT doctors who told him he was fine.
Hmm.
But we didn't have CBT scans back then. But when I sent him to a specialist that I liked 2 hours away, he said, well, where are your x-rays? And once he had the x-rays taken, he found that bone growth and removed it. And then we were able to teach him how to breathe.
Amazing. Amazing. Huh.
Yeah. So when you have a stuffy nose, you've got to get that clear and help yourself by doing some nasal washing. So this is a new product on the market that is very good. It's made by NeilMed, and it's called a Sinugator, singulator.
Okay.
And
Never heard that.
there's a base that you put water in,
Okay.
use warm water, and then you just put it in your nose, get over a sink,
Uh-huh.
your nose, turn it on, and it pumps that water through your nose. Now, what I have always used is the Grosson nasal adapter, and you can also still buy this online. You buy it with a water pick
Mm-hmm.
called the Hydromed water pick, and it's the same principle. You
Yeah.
fill a water pick basin, and then
Mm-hmm.
in the nose, and it's attached to just like a water pick would be, and it pumps it through the nose. Now, if your nose is blocked on one side, it will go up through and then down through your mouth.
Wow.
If the airway is open on both sides, it will just go up and out the other side. Then you do this side, up and out the other side. But if you can't use this at all, either one of
Yeah.
these, you've got blockage.
Wow.
You've got to see a doctor. And this comes with its little packets that you put in the water for clearing the nose. And of course, these are wonderful. Also,
Oh, and you could reuse those, right? I used to have those. I haven't had them in a long time, but you buy like the saline salt that goes into it, right? Or a solution. I'm not sure what it is.
well, it's just nasal saline.
Okay.
You can make it up yourself, but I have a recipe that I give my patients if they're interested in making it themselves, or you can buy it at the drugstore. And so it's just a saline type of rinse that you're doing. But that's very important to get the nose working correctly. But then you still have to sit with your mouth closed. So you have to teach yourself to sit with your mouth closed. And one of the ways is to take a little bread tab off of your bread wrapper and hold it between your lips. And just
Wow.
sit that way when you're driving, when you're reading, when you're doing dishes, when you're vacuuming the house. Just hold that between your lips. You can also use a popsicle stick, or this is like a little tongue blade, and just hold that. I mean, even a piece of paper would work. But one of the other things that you can do is get some cotton rolls. Anybody can buy cotton rolls on Amazon.
Yes.
And then some 1-inch tape.
Ooh.
And then what I do is I kind of spritz the cotton rolls and make them so that they're not dry. And then watch me. I put one in the upper lip, one in the lower lip, and then you close your lips. And 3 pieces of paper tape, and you go up the side of your nose, under your nose, to your chin.
Wow. Wow. I mean, you can't talk while you do that, but I understand what you're doing.
Okay. And then when you take it off, be sure you keep your
Yeah.
lips closed. Now, by sitting that way I start out with 5 minutes and build up to an hour with my patients. They start to learn to function with mouth closed. And that is so critical to being able to use their mouth and their nose correctly. Okay. The other thing that's important is to learn to breathe with your diaphragm. Most people that I see are chest breathers. They take very short bursts of air. So they really should be using their diaphragm. And there's instructions on Google. You just need to learn to use your diaphragm for diaphragmatic breathing so that you're getting big, nice breaths of controlled air, not short, shallow, fast breaths of air. Okay. So, oh my gosh, it's 10:30 already.
I know. We got another minute. Go ahead. One more minute.
Enough time. So to be continued. The next time we see each other, I'm going to be talking more about airway. And so we will see what we missed and catch up that. Perfect. But thank you so much for today's time together. I really appreciate it. And I guess we'll see you next week, Jill.
Absolutely. Tell us one more time how we can contact you, Barbara Greene.
805-452-4302, or my website, or barbara@tonguethrust.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here as always. I love the tutorials and I'm glad we got it. We got in, everything went great, and always a pleasure speaking with you, Barbara. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And now I got to stop chest breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. I got to focus and think and fill up the diaphragm. I have a problem with that myself. A lot of us do. Thank you so much, Barbara. Enjoy your day.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.